All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So hi Evan, how are you?
Hi there, I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So Evan is a personal friend of mine. I consider him actually a mentor. I met Evan at Georgia State. He was a guest professor in one of my classes, and we kind of just maintained our network from there. So Evan is a principal attorney at Kaine Law LLC and concentrates his practice on personal injury matters, including motor vehicle accident, dog bites, slip and falls, and wrongful deaths. Mr. Kaine is an advocate for defending clients' rights and protecting their interests, and prides himself in making his primary goal is to help families put their lives back together after tragic events. And so, like I said, Evan also went to Georgia State, and after that, he also went to Nova University in 2003. He also obtained a Master's of Law Letters in Litigation and Alternative Dispute Resolution from the George Washington School of Law in 2004. So, Evan, I'm going to turn it over to you. I hope you guys are excited as I am. Thank you, Evan, for being here and talking to our students today.
Certainly my pleasure. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Let's iron that part out first. I know a lot of people are on mute, but for those faces I can see, thumbs up, we're good? Okay, perfect. So again, my name's Evan Kaine. I go way back to roots in South Florida. I was born in a little fishing town called Fort Pierce, which is like halfway between Fort Lauderdale and Orlando on the East Coast. Lived there for my first years, then moved to Fort Lauderdale, Coral Springs area, before moving to Atlanta, and did middle school, high school, college in Atlanta. Went to Georgia State University. While I was in Coral Springs, though, I did go to Nova Day School. I don't know if everyone here is in like the South Florida area or what part, but I started Nova Day, which was in Coral Springs, then moved to Atlanta, did undergrad at Georgia State University. And I was in a position kind of in high school where many of you may have heard you're too smart for your own good, right? And different families, different people have different perceptions of what that may mean to them. Mine was I was getting in trouble at school. In high school, I went to a public high school, and I was bored in my sophomore and junior years because it just wasn't the right fit for me. So I took advantage of an opportunity that they provided in Georgia. I don't know, I'm sure there's something similar in Florida, where we could do a joint enrollment or a dual enrollment, where my senior year of high school, I took essentially my freshman year of college simultaneously. And you can do it where you go to high school in the morning and then go to college in the afternoon. I was in such a bad place, we'll put it, that I didn't go to high school at all my senior year. I went straight to college and was a freshman while my whole like senior class was senior class high school. I was freshman year in college. And I was really young. I was always the youngest in my class. And I ended up going to college at 16 because I was already so young in my class. And my true freshman roommate, I went summer school, right? So I finished high school junior year in May, or what is it? Yeah, April, May. June, I moved into the dorms and started summer session at a college in Middle Georgia. And my true freshman roommate was 21. And there I was 16. So he exposed me to different life experiences that I didn't previously have. And that didn't work out too well for my academic career. 12 days later, I found myself moving back home because my grades had already failed. All right. And how can I fail in 12 days? Well, in summer session, you have to go to essentially all the classes because there's not many classes. And I had already missed so many classes that there was no way for me to recover. So I had failed out in 12 days. I think that was a record. And the reason I even mention it here is hopefully a lot of the takeaways will be, don't do what I did, right? Learn from my mistakes without making your own. So 12 days later, I'm home. And then fall, I started again at a different school in South Georgia to get my grades up high enough to transfer to Georgia State, which is in Atlanta. So at the time, we were on the quarter system. So I did summer quarter, failed that one. Fall quarter, got my grades up. Winter quarter, I transferred to Georgia State, back home at the time to Atlanta. And Then it was just after the 96 Olympic Games. So I moved into the Olympic Village that many of you may have heard of or be familiar with, where the Olympic athletes had lived during the Olympic Games when they were in Atlanta in the summer of 1996. So they were great. It was brand new stuff back then, designed for the athletes and students in mind, but I moved into those right away. Now I was 17 as a true freshman in college, like a real freshman, and I had roommates, and living in the dorms there, it was for every 2 bedrooms you have in a dorm, there's a common living room, a common kitchen. And in my unit, there were 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. So I split a bathroom with a roommate, but I had 4 total roommates. It was really nice stuff as compared to my 2 previous colleges just before that. But that said, I had plenty of social distraction, which was not a good thing for me at 16 or the very next year at 17. I was not the ideal student, we'll put it that way. And Georgia State is downtown Atlanta. It's a big commuter school, meaning there's not a huge campus life. They're not making movies or telling stories about the quad and the central area where people gather. And it's not like your Hollywood looking college setup. So people would come and go a lot. And there wasn't a big infrastructure. It wasn't a big social life, which was kind of good initially for me to learn my way and get on track and realize like I am here in college because I need to get a college degree and learn and develop and grow. But then a few months in, it became not good because I didn't have a social life. And I would like run home to the suburbs of Atlanta on weekends to go see my high school friends who were still in high school, senior year, while I was in college pushing forward there. So what I ended up doing, mind you, I'm starting all of this as I was not a good student. What I ended up doing was joining a fraternity. And many people have different, outlooks on Greek life being, fraternities, sororities. I didn't have a very strong opinion of them, or at least a very positive opinion of them until I, kind of stumbled my way there. But what it allowed me to do is it gave me a social network within the college to be able to then not only say, all right, I'm here for school, but I'm going to stay here for my social life and work. And there's positives that came from that as we go here. But I joined a fraternity and started having fun at college and started enjoying life and enjoying where I was in the world in college, as opposed to running away to go back home to like my high school friends. And it allowed me then to continue to grow and develop and learn, because I think, in my opinion, what college is truly about is it's a bridge to help people be exposed to life in a safe way. It's not just like, you're out the door, good luck and God bless. Certainly there's many things to learn in college. But I don't think it's as critical of like, I need to learn 2 + 2 = 4. Like that's a life skill. You got to know what 2 + 2 equals in life. But in college, they're teaching you a way of kind of approaching life, a way to think about things. And that's really what it's about. It's a growing and a developing time. And I wasn't able to do that until I joined a fraternity, which many people think that's the opposite, that the fraternity is not really there to positively support you. But for me, I was fortunate in that it did. And in doing so, the college opportunity then changed a bit for me. And I went through freshman year and had success there. And I'm in my sophomore year and still having success in college. And my counselor called me in and said, Evan, you're a sophomore, you're approaching your junior year. What do you want to major in? And I said, I don't know. I'm not really into like the academic part of this thing. I'm really here for like the life and the experience. And I really want to get a degree, but I don't really care what it's in. They said, well, we understand that. I'm glad that your grades are good and you're successful. But you got to make a decision. And I said, well, you know what? You pick, you decide. I don't really care. I'm just here to kind of make my way. And they said, well, Evan, that's not how this works. You have to make that decision yourself. And I said, no. All right, well, if that's how it's going to be, tell you what, let's find a major that does not require foreign language. right? Let's just narrow this long list of choices down where I don't need foreign language. It's like, all right, why? And I said, well, I've taken, Spanish since like elementary school. At that time, I was fluent in Spanish, and I was tired of Spanish. I didn't want any more foreign language in my life, and I needed a way to kind of narrow my focus. So that took the list from, I don't know how many, like 100 down to like 20 options at the time. Now, all this is, I think foreign language is critical, and I regret that choice, but nonetheless, this is how I came to where I am. And we're going down this list of 20 majors, and I'm reading, I'm like, that's boring, kind of like, and then ultimately I get down to this line item. It says hospitality administration. What's that? And my counselor said to me, well, that's, restaurant management, hotel management, travel and tourism, private club management. And I like to eat. I like to travel. I like vacations. That sounds cool. I'll do that. Right. So I became a hospitality administration major, a very critical decision made with a lot of thought and research. Just because I like to eat at restaurants, I chose a major. Right. That said, I wouldn't do it that way, but that's how I came to that decision, is very scientific. And in doing so, then my junior year and my senior year of college, I had to take major courses. And what that means is I'm not taking just like basic math and basic history, basic English. They change your focus, and you have to start taking your major classes. So like intro to hospitality administration, restaurant management, private club management, so very specific. It's more tailored to the specific components of what your major is. And then there's some other things, like I had to take accounting 101 and finance and things like that. But as I'm going along, I'm stumbling through, and it's fine, and I'm enjoying myself, which is what I think college for me was about. And I got to a point where in my personal life, I don't actually share this often, but it may help. In my personal life, my parents, I'm an only child, and my parents were now getting divorced. Okay. And I was away at school. I was like an hour away. And it was a really difficult time and process for me, because I didn't ever expect that to happen. It was not an easy, it was not a nice process. And it got pretty stressful on me, and so bad that my dad told me, he's like, just why don't you take some time off and drop out of school, right? Just until this stressful period's over. And I remember distinctly telling him in response, you've given me some great life advice over the years, and I appreciate it, but that is the absolute worst thing you've ever told me to do. Like, there's no worse advice you've ever given me. And he's like, all right. I mean, I'm sure he was pleased with that response, but let me explain how I came to that. First, and most importantly, if I am not in college, I could not participate with my fraternity, right? And it's not to say, oh, you must do a fraternity, but it hooked me. It was like the kind of this like secret ingredient to keep me going in college. Not everybody has that experience with Greek life, but for me, that's what it meant. But the other piece that I came up with from this was, if I stopped going to school, right? Even if I took a semester off, I stopped making progress, right? You can't get closer to the finish line without moving forward, right? And even if I took, one class, it's better than taking no classes. Even if I got a C in the one class or two classes or three classes, that's still passing. And it got me closer to graduating, which the goal was graduate, right? So I turned him down. I stayed in school and kept chugging along. I just kept making small steps, maybe not as quality of steps, maybe not as big of steps, but still small steps towards the finish line, which was graduation. And as I'm approaching graduation, they called me in again and said, listen, you've got to take this class, hospitality law, in order to graduate. As a required course. I said, all right, well, it's only offered Monday mornings at 9 a.m. And that doesn't work with my social calendar. I've got a busy weekend, and I'm not going to be here at 9 a.m. They said, well, we understand that, but you'll forever be in college until you decide to take this course and pass it. So I signed up for the class and took it and showed up on day one and listened to what the professor had to say about what the course was about. And meanwhile, this was I progressed to my fall semester senior year, and I'd already applied to and been accepted into MBA programs for hospitality administration in some of the top schools in the country to continue past college to get my MBA. And with plans to go either hotel or restaurant. I hadn't decided at that point. But I take this course and I show up and I listen to what they're talking about. And hospitality law is the class. And all of a sudden, it was the first time I had like a spark. Otherwise, I've been going to school the whole time. I've just been taking classes, but I had a spark and a true interest in what they were discussing. And I showed up and I went all semester to every single class, had perfect attendance, which, mind you, I had not had since high school, which I don't recommend these things. And I got like a 98 as my total grade, not a 98 on an exam, but a 98, almost perfect score in the class. And I looked at it, I took stock in it, and I said, clearly there's something here with this legal thing for me. So I approached my teacher and discussed the fact that I'd already applied to and been accepted to some of the best MBA programs for hospitality around the country, but this law thing has really sparked an interest. So at her encouragement, I went on and I applied to law school. In my senior year, having already been accepted to MBA programs, I went for it and just said, it's of interest to me. So fortunately, I got into law school, because otherwise I would have been in a much worse off position because I had withdrawn my MBA acceptances at that point because I completely changed course. So fortunately, I got in. I wouldn't recommend that either. I'd leave options open, but I closed my options and just became lucky to get in. And off I went to law school after graduating. And what's important there is, just because you major in something in college doesn't mean that defines where you go from there. You know, I tell my students, and I'll relate that in a moment. I don't care what your major is, just get out of college, right? There's a lot of students, I ask them on day one, I teach a college course, or I taught one for many years. The concept in high school is finish, right? Graduate. If you choose to go to college, the concept in college is graduate. It is not a major in this and a minor in that. Wait, I changed my mind. Doesn't matter. I've been out of college for 19 years. 20 years. No one has ever asked me what my major was in college. The only time they asked me what my major was in college was on my graduate school application, right? So it is simply get a degree. That is my approach to college. Get a degree. The end. Take the path of least resistance, which is what I did, to see that you get an education and you get your degree and move on to what it is you're looking to do. So having a hospitality, hotel, restaurant management background, they accepted me into law school, which means they'll take anybody. Clearly, they took me. So I went on to law school, and I'm in school, and I was unsure as to whether or not that was truly my path. It interests me, but it's quite a rigorous academic program. There's a lot of work that goes into it, especially in your first year. So college is 4 years, law school is 3 years following that. And I knew never to take time off. I went straight from high school into college. I went straight from college into law school. I knew that if I ever took a single semester or quarter or term or month off, I would never go back, because I knew me as a person. I would never, ever go back. That's not for everybody. You know, some people have better self-discipline than me, but I am not that person. So I went straight in, and as I'm leaving to go to law school, my dad says, listen, give it 30 days. And in 30 days, if you hate it, come home. All right. So I said, that's an odd statement to make, but okay, I'll indulge. And off I go. And after the first week, he gives me a call. He says, how's it going? And I told him, well, I've got, 5 classes, I think it was. And every class is assigning 100 pages of reading each night. So that's essentially 500 per class per week. And I said, I hate it. I am absolutely miserable. I can't keep up. It is difficult. It's interesting, but it's really difficult, and I don't understand it, and I don't know what I'm doing. And he said, so when are you coming home? And I said, what do you mean? So, well, you said you hated it. And I said, if you don't like it, come home. And I'm like, are you kidding? I'm 7 days into this thing. I'm not quitting now. I only have 2 years and 8 months to go. I'm not going to give up today because it's hard. I'll give up tomorrow if it's still hard. And then when I got to tomorrow, it was still hard. But I'll give up tomorrow, the next day. So it's important that you kind of figure out what you're doing, right? Come up with a plan and just stick to it. And I said, he said, well, how are you going to manage this? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the page, right? I got 100 pages to read. And when I'm crying at the end of page 1 or hating it and despising what I'm doing, I'm going to turn the page. And when I get to the end of page 2 and I still hate it, I'm going to turn the page. And then I'm going to get to the end of page 3 and 4 and 5 and so on. And then I'm going to be done. I'm going to get through it. So that was my approach to law school. In the beginning is just to turn the page and figure out how to get out of it. And again, it's about getting through law school. For me, it was about completing law school for me. So in doing that, it just became a process. And there, for those that I see that most cameras are off, but do you know what they call a law student that graduates last in their class? Anybody want to chime in or put it on chat? I won't do too long of a dramatic pause. They call that person who graduates last in their class a lawyer, right? Because they got their law degree. And I wasn't last in my class, but most importantly, I got my law degree. And it doesn't matter, right? Because again, I got my law degree and that doesn't do anything for you either. I spent 3 years of my life, blood, sweat, and tears studying and doing. But the next step is what mattered. And the next step is taking the bar exam. And the bar exam is the licensing exam that allows you to practice law. So you graduate from law school, but if you never get licensed, there's really not much you can do in terms of practicing law without that license. So I had to start studying for that exam next. And if I did, it's only offered twice a year. If I didn't pass that, I was all done. So the hardest part of my entire academic career was between graduation and that exam, because that was the true test. Because I realized at that point, all this blood, sweat, and tears, all the left, the right, the up, the down, the obstacles I'd overcome, right, getting here wouldn't matter unless I passed that exam and got my license. So I was fortunate there that I took the exam. I took Florida first because I'd gone to law school in Florida. I didn't even get into all that, but I will in a moment. I'll go backwards a little bit. I took the Florida bar, and the year that I took, well, every year, California is the hardest bar in the country. Every state has their own bar exam. And then New York and Florida they kind of compete for who's the second hardest and who's the third hardest throughout the country. And the year I took Florida and passed Florida, they were the second hardest in the country. So I felt somewhat accomplished there. The fact that I passed right away. And then let me hit pause and back up a bit. So I did Georgia State undergrad. And when I was leaving Georgia State and going off to law school, I was dating a girl that was applying to get her PhD in clinical psychology, which is strangely more difficult to get into than law school. And she and I were applying to different schools, trying to continue our lives together at the time as long-term college boyfriend and girlfriend. And she went to, she had applied to a number of schools and only got into one, which was Nova Southeastern in South Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. And I had gotten into a few law schools, including Nova and the University of Miami and a couple of others. And I was headed to University of Miami, but realized that Nova and the University of Miami were pretty equally ranked at the time. So I said, to heck with it. I'll go to Nova with her. So I followed a girl is how I got into went to the law school that I chose. Not this girl, by the way, different girl. So I chose my college career path based on a different girl, or my graduate career path based on a different girl than my life. And So we went off together, and that lasted, as you can expect, about 6 months. We were together, but I'd already chosen the course. And while I was there, having turned down my MBA programs initially, I decided to get an MBA anyway. So I did my JD, which is my law degree, my Juris Doctorate, and my MBA simultaneously at Nova Southeastern. So when I actually graduated my MBA sooner than I graduated with my law degree. So when I was done with law school, after that 3 years, and I graduated in May and really started the hard work studying for the bar, I was a JD MBA graduate, but I couldn't do anything with it in the legal field until I passed the bar, which I took in July. And then when I was done with that, I moved to Washington, D.C. I started this conversation with I was not a great student, right? And I don't mean I wasn't intelligent, I wasn't smart. I'm not making any judgments there. What I'm saying about a great student is I didn't love academics. I wasn't a bookworm. I wasn't I didn't have a thirst for I got to learn more, right? School was just a thing for me. I had to do it, and however I got to get through it. So this next statement may not make sense. I've done high school, I've done college, I've done an MBA, I've done a law degree. I finished my law degree. I went on to go get my LLM, which is another graduate degree. So I had a master's in business, a doctorate in law, and then I chose to go get an LLM, which is a master's in legal letters, which is once you graduate with a law degree, you can elect to continue to do more school. And why would I do that if I didn't love school? Well, my answer is sort of like how I chose my major. My answer is not very scientific. My answer is, one, I wasn't ready to go to work yet. So I figured I'd keep going to school. Two, I wanted to have a top 20 law school on my resume in the event that I needed it one day. And I went to George Washington University in Washington, D.C. And there, they were, I think the year I went there, they were ranked 19 in the country. So I had a top 20 school on my resume because I wanted to do international business litigation. Why did I want to do international business litigation? Because it sounded sexy. The end. Like, that is why I wanted to do it. But that didn't work out. I'll tell you about how it came to be. So that was, again, I'm making very scientific life choices, as you can tell from my history here, but it all seems to work out because I had a focus the entire time. It was just, how did I get there? And in doing so, I moved to Washington, D.C. I take this LLM program, and while I'm there, I meet a guy who was traveling from Atlanta to Washington, D.C. each week to take this course with me. He was 10 years older than I was, and he had already had an established law practice in Atlanta, and encouraged me. We became friends over the year, and he encouraged me to come work with him, not for him, but with him. And he would kind of mentor me a bit. And this is years before mentor programs were out there. And I thought about it, and I said, well, maybe I like the idea of going into business on my own. But at the time, with my JD, my MBA, and my LLM from a top 20 law school, the job market was offering me jobs at about $140,000 a year, which is great money. And this was 18 years ago at this point. No, 16, 17 years ago at this point. But I turned them down. And I didn't understand why. Now I have a better appreciation of why I turned them down. But taking that job, very attractive. I was really going to have to earn that money, meaning I would be stuck in an office working crazy hours all the time and not be able to enjoy the money, or even candidly, I wouldn't be able to spend the money. Now it's a different time, it's a different world. Where I'm going with that is, we didn't have Amazon then, right? These days, I could sit at my desk and spend all my money, maybe more money than I even have, by ordering stuff online and having it shipped to my house. Back then, that wasn't a thing. I wouldn't have time to go to the mall or time to go to the store to even enjoy the lifestyle. The other concern I had was, one of the few times that I had life insight was that if I took that job, making 140 grand the first year, which would have been great, I would have ended up creating a life around that money. Meaning I would say, oh, got my first paycheck. It's big. I love it. I'm going to go buy a new car. I'm going to go buy a house, right? I'm going to go set a lifestyle, wear designer clothes, that kind of thing. And one day, if I decided to go out on my own and start my own business, I would be here in terms of financial income, where when you start a business, you really need to be way down below even where the screen will show you, right? Because you can't see with this other hand. So I realized that I was used to eating, cheese toast and ramen noodles and having a very just, basic carefree life without any overhead. I didn't have a wife. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a car note. So I said, I'm going to take this leap of faith now. And I moved from Washington, D.C. to Atlanta and joined this guy that I'd met in his law firm. I did this before I was even licensed to practice law in Georgia. I took the bar exam in Georgia and was awaiting my results and made that move, because the bar, you take it in, I took Florida's bar in July and I got those results in October. Then I took, bars only offered twice a year. I took it again I took Georgia's bar February and got my results in May. So it takes a few months to get the results. I had already made the move back to Atlanta in the hopes that I was going to pass the Georgia bar. Fortunately, I did pass the Georgia bar, so I was licensed to practice in Georgia, where I'd moved to set up a practice and set up shop. And this guy gave me the opportunity and said, listen, all he did was criminal defense, right? Representing people who are charged with crimes. And the only thing at that point I knew I didn't want to do was criminal defense. So he gave me an opportunity to come into his office, and he would serve as my mentor. He'd show me the ropes. Where's the courthouse? Where do you sit in the courthouse? What's the right etiquette? What are the things you're supposed to do there? And in exchange, he wanted me to bring my business background, my MBA, and clean up his business of law, right? So any business that you're in, any business that you're involved in, I don't care what your product is. I don't care what your service is. It is a business, right? Some people work in factories and they manufacture things, right? They've made this pen in a factory somewhere. And when you're done with your job, you say, look what I accomplished. I made a pen. I can touch a pen. But in the professional services, doctors, lawyers, accountants, architects, there's not a product at the end. It's a service, which means all we can sell is our brains and our time and our experience and our advice. But that's no different than making pens, right? You still have to run it like a business. You still need to have a bank account. You still need to have a marketing plan. You still need to acquire new business, close deals, make money. So he needed help kind of framing that up and making that work for him. So that's what he wanted me to bring to the table. And what he said is, I can't afford to pay you, but I can afford to give you an opportunity. I'll give you a desk, I'll give you a phone, and I'll give you a chair. And you, Evan, can have any cases that come in my door that are not criminal defense related. And I said, cool, because I don't want to do criminal defense. I want everything else. So I showed up to his office on day one, and I walk in and I had my own thought of what a law firm looked like. And I walk in and I'm in the waiting room, and he's giving me the tour. He's like, here's the waiting room. Walks down the hall. He's like, here's my office, the attorney office. Here's my paralegal's office. His paralegal had her own office. And he's like, here's the restroom. I said, great. Where do I sit? And we walked back out to the waiting room, and he showed me this little desk in the corner that he bought at like Office Depot that he built himself. And he said, that's you right over there in that corner. I said, this is the waiting room. It's like, yeah, but there's your desk. I gave you a desk. There's a chair. I gave you a chair. And let me connect this. Here's your phone. So I gave you a desk, a phone, and a chair. Okay. So there I was, day one. I'm a practicing lawyer in Atlanta, sitting in the waiting room, while his paralegal had her own office. But I was okay with that because it was an opportunity that I could grow from. And he sat me down and he said, and listen, not only are you going to be humble beginnings starting in a waiting room, but I have a policy around here. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do. I don't care what your background is. If at the end of the day, the trash needs to be taken out and there's no one to take out the trash, you take out the trash. He said, I do the same thing, right? Whatever job needs to be done, I don't care who we are, we still have to do it because it still needs to get done at the end of the day. And I still, to this day, tell my employees during their orientation, when we hire them at my firm, that story, that at the end of the day, I don't care who you are, You got to take out the trash. Then what am I going to do? Day one, I have no cases. Guess what? I did the trash. I don't mean I took out the trash. I mean, I took the cases that nobody else wanted because I had to build my name. I had to learn. I had to gain experience. So not only was I the trash man, but I was actually the trash man. I did all the trash. I took it out and I took the cases. So that's what gave me my first start. And that's what allowed me to start to learn how to practice law and how, what law looked like and how to grow from it. And over the years, he showed me where the courthouse was, and I took every type of case that I could in order to figure out essentially what I never wanted to do again. I narrowed it down that way. And I see we need to take some questions as needed and fire away. I've got a couple of other points to make, but I can weave those in. So if you've got questions, take your mic off or whatever, just speak over me, it's fine. The other piece that I came up with was, as I know you're processing the questions as they're coming in, but the other piece that I came up with was I needed to figure out what kind of law and what kind of lawyer I was going to be. And that's what I gained from having all these different types of experiences. It allowed me to figure out what I enjoyed and what I hated. Questions?
Okay, so the first question is from Faida, and she says, good morning. Looking back to your young self who graduated at an early age, do you think you were too young to go to college or to make a decision on how that affected your life now?
I was absolutely too young to go to college, yes. I don't think that it affected my life now. I don't think it can affect your life. I think you've got to deal with what's in front of you, which is what I did. There are certainly some things that I was planning to touch on in a moment that I wanted to change about my life. And had I been older and more mature, I could have probably realized those at a better time. But yes, that was a challenge that I did face.
Okay,
but given the opportunity, I think there's no reason not to go.
Okay, the next question is from Vanessa, and she asked, since you were unsure about what you wanted to major in college, would you recommend people try a little bit of everything or take time off before enrolling in order to make that decision?
I am a big advocate. So the next piece I was going to discuss is I went back to Georgia State as a professor. The class that sent me to law school, the hospitality law class, an opportunity came up and I started teaching that class sort of as my inspiration project because it changed my life so remarkably. I became that instructor. And I tell my students as part of that class, or actually I did it for 12 years and I just stopped this past May, or I guess a year ago or so. I tell them that my approach is absolutely positively do not take any time off. I don't care what you do with the time while you're in school, as long as you're in school. The moment you take time off, the rate of people that do not go back and do not finish is tremendous. I think that I would rather stumble around and not make tremendous progress in school than risk leaving school and potentially not coming back. A lot of the guys I graduated college with, he said, oh, I'm going to go to grad school. I'm going to go to grad school. I'd say 20% of them actually did. And the rest of them are still graduated in 2000, still talking about it, wanting to go back to college or go back to grad school.
Okay, the next question here is, what do you like and dislike most about your job?
I like the opportunity that we are able to help people individually. One of the things that directed me here, as opposed to like my international business litigation concept, is that my clients are individuals. It's not like I represent Debbie at Delta or Susie at Coca-Cola. I represent individuals, families, and what we do to make a difference in their lives every day has a tremendous impact on them. That's what I really like about it. What I dislike about it is the fact that it's troublesome at times we meet people during a very difficult time of life, right? The only reason you ever talk to a personal injury attorney is because you're in a bad time of life. You've had an injury, you're hurt, or you've lost a loved one. That's a stressful, bad time. And they end up taking that out on us, which is difficult for us to bear because we didn't cause it. We're here to help fix it. We're what's in their face right now. And that makes it very difficult at times.
Okay, the next question. Would you say that your career choice being shifted impacted your decision to focus more on school? And that question is from Jakara.
My career path being shifted. I don't follow. I think I'm going to extrapolate
Oh, I'm
unless
sorry, your career choice. So it says, would you say that your career choice being shifted impacted your decision to focus more on school? Does that help a little bit?
it helps with the question, but sadly, my answer is no. I never, again, I wouldn't use me as a compass, a moral compass, but I never cared one way or another for school. It was a means to an end for me. I needed to get through this class. I needed to get through this degree. I needed to get through this program in order to get to the finish line. So I had no desire to be the number one student, in my graduating class. It would have been nice if I was, but I didn't care. At the end of the day, I wanted to graduate. I wanted a piece of paper and I wanted to move on.
Okay. Justinia said, do you have any regrets about your choices?
Yes, I do. One of the things that I regret most is I did not, dealing with my maturity and my age, I did not figure out it was important to not burn bridges, right? So as I grew up, as I went through school, I burned bridges. And what I mean by burning bridges is I didn't foster friendships and relationships. I didn't maintain them. It was, I'm here in the here and now, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to move on and move through this, and didn't care much about those around me. I wasn't mean. I didn't foster anything. I didn't nurture anything. And I didn't realize that at the time that was burning bridges and future potential relationships. So I figured it out, but it took many more years, and I would have many more opportunities and contacts than I do now had I not burned so many bridges along the way. And I think that was a subject, or a result rather, of my immaturity going to school so early, kind of relating to the earlier question.
Okay, the next question says, okay, so it's going back to something that you said. So it says, if he said that if he would have taken a semester off, he wouldn't have gone back to school. Thinking as if you were in school today, if it was all online and you had the same workload, do you think you would still have been able to pull through? So I'm guessing, putting yourself in their shoes now.
Right, I know, I understand. I'm working remote now. So hitting fast forward, that guy who mentored me, he and I broke up. We no longer work together. I ended up opening up my own firm, and there's 26 people that I employ. And all 26 of us right now have all gone working remotely. That's anything from a number of attorneys that work for me, paralegals, assistants, administrative, a lot of stuff. Every one of us has gone remote, and we're holding ourselves accountable. This has been one of the most challenging periods of my professional career because I'm at home right now talking to you, and I have a refrigerator and I have a television just down the hall from where I'm sitting, and that is my biggest weak spot, right? But I'm not only having to still do my work, but I'm also having to hold 25 other people accountable and lead 25 other people using Zoom. So I think that if you make the decision that I'm going to do this and I'm going to get through it because it's a means to an end, not like, oh, I want to be an A student or a B student, right? Because if you stumble and you become a C student, that's easy to give up on because you're not holding yourself to your A or B. That wasn't my approach. My approach was, I'm getting through this. I'm going to reach the finish line. I don't care how I had to do it. I was going to get there. So that was how it was a little different for me, and how I would approach it if this was the new normal.
Okay, so the next question is from Faye, and she asks, what's one thing you can tell us that might help us before we graduate?
It's a non-traditional answer, but in line with, I actually have two things. So graduate being from high school, correct?
Yeah, I'm assuming they're high school juniors and seniors.
All right. So if I can, I'm going to answer that with two things. First, when I taught college, I taught juniors and seniors in college. And it's an interesting change. If you look at arguably probably your parents, maybe your grandparents' time period, everybody went to high school, everybody graduates high school. And back in the day, if you went to college, you were something special, right? That's my parents' time, my grandparents, if they go to college, it's special. Now it is special if you go to grad school, right? College is almost the new normal these days. So think about that from that approach, that where do you want your life to be, not in the next 3 years, but in the next 30 years. Because if you want it to be way ahead of where you are right now, which is what I hope that each of you participating in this program would want, think about what is it going to be 30 years from now. Not, oh, I'm so tired of school, I've been in it for so long, 11th grade, 12th grade, and I don't want to do another 4 years or 3 years after that. Yeah, for the rest of your life. I wouldn't be able to do anything that I do today without having committed those very few years getting it done. I'm almost 41. I've spent, at this point in my life, about half my life in school. You've probably spent almost all of your life in school. Think about, in the long term, what roots are you able to lay today to be able to help you down the road? That's number one. Number two is the other advice I have that can help you today is probably what Brianna does, and how I got here is she's a great networker. She stays on top of her contacts. It's important to do that. Take your friends, take your family, take your friends' friends who you're acquaintances with now, and come up with a way to stay in touch with them, stay in front of them. You don't know what they'll become. You don't know what resources you'll have as a result of knowing them. We've just started in my office to build a completely separate list of people, just people, using free software that will allow us to kind of just maintain our contacts. And I can talk a bit more about that, but I want to make sure I answer the questions as well.
Okay, so the next question asks, what do you see as a major issue or trends in the field today? And that's from Long.
In terms of the legal field today?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think this virtual stuff is a huge trend and potential issue for us. And I think that it also is industry specific. So for example, not political, but if I was an immigration attorney, right? If you're watching the news, our government just stopped all immigration. Well, my entire workflow would have just stopped, right? If that was my field. So I think that's a challenge for the legal field and for all fields. Look at the car manufacturers during this crisis had to stop making cars and start making ventilators, which is a great thing for our society. But in terms of a business, that's a huge threat. So I think that one of the things, how do you plan for that? You can't plan for something like we're experiencing right now. It's unprecedented. So for us in my office, the thing I can use as an example is we planned to have financial security, meaning to have money available just in case. In case of what? I don't know, but now I do. In case of COVID, right? So we planned to have a backup in the sense that we have the ability to keep paying our people, keep them working for our clients. And then we've got this technology. I think the biggest trend and a big threat is social media and technology, and having to stay on top of it and having to stay aware of it. I just hired somebody within the last 30 days just to help me manage social media, because it sounds silly, I'm a few years too old to understand it. But everyone on here, I'll bet, can teach me something new about social media, and I need that to work for me. And I think that those are things that you just have to step back and think about, the big picture, the long-term opportunities or threats that are out there.
Okay, the next question comes from Huguette, and she asks, how do you control your emotions when working with your clients, especially when they are going through difficult times?
A lot of people ask me that, and I don't have a magic solution to it. At this point, I've done this a long time, and I've dealt with thousands of clients. I take a breath, and I try to not only understand and put myself in my client's shoes, but also remember to take a step back and realize that they come to me. My clients come to me, whether they're happy, sad, stressed, devastated. They come to me for advice and guidance, right? They don't need a cheerleader from me, right? That they can turn to their friends and families to get a cheerleader. They don't need an adversary from me. We're going against people. We're going against their opponents. What they need from me is somebody who can separate themselves from the situation and give them advice and guidance. And I have to remember that that's one of our guiding principles is in terms of what I do and why do I exist in this profession.
Okay, and the last question that we have here is there a specific reason that you're a personal injury lawyer after gaining all of that background? And that question comes from Alexis.
Yes, and that was one of the things I had a couple of tips to kind of leave us with. So thank you for asking that question. With all the cases that I did early in my career, I kind of used that to figure out what I never wanted to do again, the different case types. I mean, I've done family law, divorce, custody, I've done bankruptcy, I've done immigration, I've done real estate, I've done it all, commercial litigation. The one thing that I found that I truly, truly enjoyed doing over and over again was personal injury because of what I already answered you in terms of being able to help individuals and their families. I had a challenge though, because I didn't want to be one of those butts of a joke and the cheesy guys and girls you see on TV, like, had a wreck, call and get a check, or, get you paid and all these, that wasn't me. But one of the things that I learned in life, and I kind of then applied it, you have to figure out what you enjoy doing and what you like doing, even love doing, and then figure out how to make money at it, right? So I enjoyed that part of law. I saw an opportunity to make money in that part of law, and I stuck with it. And I said, to heck with them. If they're going to make jokes out of me, that's fine. All right. I can be a better personal injury lawyer than those that I think poorly of. But I think that the key for me was to identify what I really enjoyed and know that I'm going to be doing a heck of a lot of it. So I better like it. And you can make money doing anything. The example would be, if you like digging holes in the dirt, right? Think about any new stadium that they're building or any new high-rise construction they're building. What do they start with? First, they clear the ground, and then they dig a very deep hole, right? And if you like digging holes and you get the contract to build that new stadium digging a hole, you're making a lot of money digging holes, but you love digging holes, so go for it. So anything out there that you enjoy doing, you can make money at. It's just you better like it. Don't let the dollar signs determine what you're going to do. Let you figure out what you like, and then the money can be there.
All right, so everyone only have 5 minutes left. Is there any contact information that you would like to give the students so that they can keep in touch or reach out if they have any further questions?
Sure.
You can let them know verbally and then type it in the chat.
I can do the verbal part. I'll have to figure out the chat in a moment. So yeah, I'm very available. I can give you my office email, which I'll type to you as well as soon as I figure that out. But that's my first initial.
I'll type it in for you.
Okay, that's my first initial last name. So it's EKAINE at elawpractice. Elawpractice is all one word, .com. So that's my email address. And then I'm no stranger to my clients. I would not choose to be a stranger to anybody for that matter. My cell phone is 404-606-5487. And I give it to clients, so I'll give it to you. And that's not some fancy, office back line that swings to this or that. That is my direct cell phone. So you can use that as well to reach out to me or text me. You can, I'm just learning Instagram, so you can find me there if you want and friend or follow. I don't know what it's called. It's not that exciting yet, but it will be. I'm getting it there.
You can follow him also at Evan Kaine, and you can follow his firm's website at Evan Kaine. Is it Evan Law? No, how is it?
It's I don't
Kaine
know.
Law ATL.
Kaine Law. I think it's like Kaine Law ATL or something like that.
Yeah, Kaine Law ATL. So follow him on Instagram. Fabi, I know that you have some closing announcements. You can go ahead and take over.
Yes. Thank you, Evan, and thank you all for the awesome questions today. They were really good. So we're going to, I'm going to send the survey on the chat, do that. And then on Friday, we're going to have Angela Torres. She's going to be talking about pursuing a career in the arts. And then, so we'll send you the email for that. And in that same email, it's also going to be sign-up slots for mock interviews. So remember to do that as well. You guys, we're going to be offering them in the next coming weeks. So that's pretty much it. Thank you, guys. And thank you, Evan, again.
Thank you so much, Evan.
My pleasure. Good luck to everybody. Thank you, guys. Stay healthy.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.